Something has been bothering my mind for some time, and I want to use this medium and opportunity to share it. And it's about the continent of Africa. Well, I'm very optimistic about this continent, about the opportunities it has to offer, about the potential we have. I'm very optimistic about what we can become if we can be more united than we are. I've been doing some research about Africa lately for some months now. I have watched several documentaries, so many, about different countries and how they gained their independence, how the time of the slave trade was, and how they gained their independence, and several other things coming from Eastern, Southern, Western, Northern Africa. And I've been trying to compare the Africa that I have read about or that I've watched on these documentaries and looking at the Africa that I now live, my current generation, and I'm seeing a trend. There's this saying that if we do not learn from the past, we are likely to tread the same path and make the same mistake. And I'm talking to my generation. I'm talking to my African brothers and sisters. If we do not learn from the past of our ancestors and parents, grandparents, we are likely to go through the same challenges and limitations they went through, that they had, and ours might even be worse, but with a different color, in a different way. I will use a little branch of science, genetics and epigenetics, to explain my line of thoughts. Please know this is my idea mixed with science. So science is a proof. It stands by itself. It cannot be questioned. It can be questioned, but it's self-proven. But I'm also mixing it with my own thoughts, my observation. I've not traveled to so many African countries. I have not been to so many African countries, even though I hope to do that in coming years. But again, with the research I have done, the documentaries I've watched, the books I've read, and the conversations I've had with some of my African friends, friends from different countries and parts of Africa, ruminated and thought through on these things, and that's where my idea and my thoughts is coming from. And of course, like I said, I'm also mixing it with some form of science to it. So let's go back to as far as we can see where it all began. We know that some countries in Africa have been as far back as centuries BC, before Christ, like Egypt and some other countries like that. And then even some parts of Western Africa have been as long as only God knows, like the ancient Benin Wall, that used to be one of those ancient wonders those many years ago before it got outdated or got overtaken by some others. But Benin City is one of the oldest cities in Africa, maybe even in recent world. And we have some other places like that in Africa. Africa, from my findings, was a continent that was at peace by itself, was living alone by itself, was eating whatever it had for itself, was living its life, had its own religion, saw life the way it thought it was, and was kind of at peace until, and I'm going to talk less about the West because that's not what this video is about. I'm less interested about what the West did to Africa, because it is not what was done to you that counts, especially in the long run. It is what you do about what was done to you in the long run that counts. So if we have so many African countries that have gained independence, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, some 50, 60, approaching 70 years, and they are worse, as in they are in a worse state as compared to even when they were still under their colonial masters. Then who's responsible? It's even possible that some countries are even regretting that it's even better that they are still under the colonial masters who could help develop their countries, maybe, than now that they have their independence. Essentially, what I'm saying is, looking back at where many African countries that had those colonial masters, where they were, the West came in and then they felt, let's have an extension of our countries in this domain. Let's have their land, let's have their properties, let's have their farm, and then let's have their cattle and all that. Then things began to turn south. Well, that was what it was. Then our ancestors began to get enslaved in their own land, different things happening to them, and some were even shipped to the West, used as servants, used as whatever that was. At that time, they had children, their children had children, and on to our generation. Coming to the gene, from my findings, we are a combination of at least 3 generations. Our gene is a combination of at least 3 generations before us. So, if 3 generations before me is about 100+ years, that means that 3 generations before me were under the colonial rule. That means that their outer reality was more of slavery, being subjected to hard labor, living a life that was contrary to your wish. You were forced to do things that you do not want to do. Life was hard. You were not free, even in your own land, even in your own house, even in your own community, and all of those things. Now, they had their own children. They saw the reality that they were in. They were forced to learn what they did not want to learn. They were forced to accept what they did not want to accept, including religion and lifestyle. And they had their children. The same thing was passed to them. And in their family circle or community circle, they passed these informations to their children. And then their children to their children. Now, do you know that there's this new idea in science coming up? It's called the 100 years something something. But this is what it simply means, that the egg that made me was in my mom's ovary, was in my mother's ovary when she was in her mother's womb. Let me say it again. The egg that made me was in my mother's ovary when she was in her mother's womb. So that simply means that if that is true, when my grandmother was pregnant of my mom, over 70 or thereabout years ago, the thoughts she had, the experiences she had, the people she came in contact with, the challenges and the situations that surrounded her, the limitations, the difficulties, the good and the bad around her, the way her husband treated her. She was not the first wife, because polygamy is something common in Africa. So if she wasn't the first wife, how the other wives treated her and every other thing influenced my mom in her womb, which was affected down to the egg that made me in my mom's ovary, which was passed on to me. Now, talking about 3 generations ago, and this is just me, I'm talking about any and every other person in Africa now. All of these challenges and difficulties happening at that time in different countries. You're talking about Namibia, you are going to Kenya, you are going to South Africa, you're going to Botswana, Zimbabwe, Ghana, Nigeria, different countries across Africa. These challenges and difficulties, the slavery, the hardship, the difficulties, and all that, form some certain mindset and beliefs of the people who lived at that time. Insecurity was high, inferiority complex was high, there was lack of trust. You do not even know which of your kinsmen is selling you people to those foreigners, giving them information, who was an informant. So the lack of trust, the disbelief, whatever negative experiences at that time was being passed around, and of course moved to their unborn children in their womb, in the gene, and on to other generations. Then you now come to epigenetics, where their reality began to alter and trigger their gene. Their children, same thing, the experiences around them, education was now more common. What they were being taught, what they were being told in school, what they were told to believe, the religion they were made and forced to accept. This physical reality also moved on to their children, my own generation. And could that be the reason why we Africans don't like each other? Go to the West. Watch some of the comic videos you see there in some of these Western countries. You see a black kid or a black guy. I'm not a racist. Please, that's not what I'm saying here. I'm talking to Africans. And then the guy is trying to ask for help. And then you see his fellow black folks are walking away from him. You see somebody says, I'd rather do business with those who are of another skin color than those who are of my color, blacks. And then politicians are not even helping as well. The political figures, those who are ruling different countries, those who have different political powers and opportunities and privileges in Africa, they are selling us short. And they go out there to other countries, to the West in particular, and then they serve as puppets, they serve as errand boys, coming back home to come and deliver messages. Again, like I was trying, let's even leave the politicians up there. Let's even talk to us, common men in Africa. You cannot do business with your fellow man, with your fellow African. You feel they will dupe you. Why would they dupe you? And this other fellow on this other side, why would you dupe your fellow man? Somebody's trying to help you and then you're trying to find a way to pull the person down. We're talking about witchcraft in Africa. Well, I hear they also have witchcraft in the West. I don't know how true that is. And they also say their witchcraft doesn't hurt anybody. I don't know how true that is. But it sounds as though it's true. I'm just thinking it's sounding true. But in Africa, you see your neighbor's son is progressing, you want to pull him down. In fact, there are parents or grandparents who do not like one of their children and they want to use that child's destiny for something. They want to kill their children to elongate their useless lives. They don't worth anything in life. They don't worth anything. They're not doing it. In fact, they're liability in the earth. But one of their children who seems to be the light to the family, who is trying to help the family, they want to kill that person to elongate their own life that is so worthless and that is a liability. Africa. You go online and then you want to check out a video of somebody who maybe a new video release, and 3 months ago the video was released, and then you see 13 million views, 70 million views, 12 million views, 1.3 million views. But then you look at a music of an African, you look at I'm still coming to product and businesses, a music of an African, you look at a comedy of an African, you look at an initiative of an African, and then a post documentary Go on YouTube and check out documentaries about different countries in Africa, how they came and overcame the slavery, and then how they got their independence and all that. Go and check these documentaries. Documentaries that have been posted 12 months ago, 18 months ago, you're finding 15,000 views, 51,000 views. Meanwhile, videos in other places outside Africa that were uploaded around the same time, you're finding these videos having several million views. Could it be that our people are refusing to watch their own stuff and preferring to watch other stuff? Or could it be the algorithm is working against Africa such that African content are being refused to be projected out there? And I'm addressing this to YouTube as well. Could it be that our own information are being hoarded and held back from our people so that they don't see it? Or could it be that we are our own problem? Come to entrepreneurship, businesses, initiatives. Sorry, I have to do this video. I've been holding this back for some months now. Come to entrepreneurship, initiatives, businesses, ideas. You see an African who's trying to develop something and you find people trying to kill it. They're trying to hoard it. They're trying to steal it. They're trying to hold it back. The government are not even helping at all. The environment, the infrastructure, the funding that they are to provide, they are not making these provisions. Rather, it is things that do not value, things that do not project us out there to the other continent. Those are the things that are being pushed out. But then you find somebody who is bringing up ideas, innovations, they're posting them online. Nobody's viewing it. Nobody's interested. Some of those things, they have been there, some 1 year, 2 years. And then see, if you want to look out for raw talent without funding, talent without encouragement, self-sponsored talent and initiatives, come to Africa. And these guys are doing their best. They are sweating their brows out to do their best. But what is wrong? What is wrong? What is wrong? Let me come to the tech industry a bit and talk a little about that. Rwanda seems to be doing well in blazing the trail in that industry. And I want to encourage other countries. So I don't know, maybe it's the government that is encouraging them or whatever it is. Let's encourage our tech guys. Let's encourage those who are trying to bring up some innovations and initiatives. Look at Asia, for example. I'm still going to come to religion. Do you know that? I hope you forgive me for this. Do you know that some of the projects of the high school students, secondary school students, some of their projects, their technical projects, some of those things that succeed so well, they take them to factories, mass produce, and ship them to Africa. And let's say a JSS3 student in China produces a remote car, a toy car that can be controlled with a remote control, and the project comes out so well. That thing is being taken to a factory, mass produced, and brought to Africa. And then a JSS3 student in Africa does so well in his exam or celebrates his birthday, and the parent says, I have a surprise for you for your birthday, a big surprise, a huge surprise. On that boy's birthday, the parent buys the project that was mass produced by his mate, his age mate, or even his junior in China. His parent buys it, brings it home as a surprise for that boy. And that boy is jumping here and there, he's talking to people here and there. My parent bought me a surprise, a toy car, remote controlled car, a toy car. Now, this was something his mate did as a project. And he's jumping here and there, he's celebrating, he's happy, and his parents are feeling fulfilled on top of the world that they bought their child a surprise or whatever. What's wrong with us? What is wrong with us in Africa? Look at China. Look at India. Look at Singapore. Nigeria, for example, and Singapore were third world countries around same decade. They were the same third world country in the same decade. But 50, 60 years down the line, look at Singapore and look at Nigeria. What's wrong? What is wrong? Malaysia. I have a friend in Malaysia. We spoke recently and I was telling him some things about Malaysia. Could that be true? How possible? Malaysia. Africa, what is wrong with us? Religion. Let me talk a bit about religion and then I'll end this video. Religion. Africa. They brought this religion to us, but we have so owned it that what we used to be known for, our handwork, our hard work, our energy, our skin color, our tonality, our ebony, things that used to be our pride, we have allowed them to go down the drain. Now we are even now shipping the religion they brought to us. We now ship them back to them. We pray a lot. We pray a lot. I'm not against prayer. I'm a Christian by religion. I'm not against prayer. But it's such a shame that the most prayerful people in companies seem to be the most incompetent. Professionally, I'm also an HR in a company, and I will tell you that from my experience, the most prayerful folks that I've found around me that I've employed as staff, you find them, and I've seen it's like a trail. It's a trait. So when I employ staff and I'm looking at this staff 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and I'm seeing that trait, I'm seeing that trajectory, I'm seeing that movement, I can tell the end of that staff. Now there are prayer houses that are quite common and they are emanating from Nigeria. Two in particular, I won't mention their names, and they pray a lot. People are connecting here and there, they are praying. Now what do you think about the staff who comes to the office, resumes at 7:30 or 7 a.m. or whatever the time is connecting to that prayer? He prays from 7, 7:30, 7:45, 8 a.m., 8:30 to 9. This person is still on his desk, bows the head down, praying. Some of them are so indecent and so, I don't use the word indecent, are so undiscerning that they even put the thing on speaker. To 9, they are praying on their desk when work starts. And you are in an open office, distracting other people, becoming a nuisance in the name of prayer. Guess what? From my observation, remember I told you I work as an HR. From my observation, these are guys who do not do well at work. Most of them are either their confirmation is either being delayed, they either resign or they are fired. They don't do well at work. I'm telling you from personal experience. I'm not telling you what I'm being told. Those who come to the office and then they pray and pray and pray and pray and pray and pray. We have become so prayerful that now we're beginning to lose our side of the bargain, our side of the equation. We now count everything on God. We now depend everything on God, thinking God will do the spiritual, He will as well come down and do the physical. Again, once again, I'm not against prayer, but prayer has its place. Prayer has its role. You as an individual, as an African, you have your own role. You pray and pray and pray, but you bear grudge in the office. You pray and pray and pray. The person who is doing well in sales in your office, you are backbiting the person. You're talking ill about that person to your boss. But then you pray and pray and pray. What's our problem in Africa? You pray and pray and pray, and then you're not greeting your neighbor at home. Your flatmate, you are not in good terms. You're not in good terms with your mother. When last did you send money to your parents? But then you pray and pray and pray and pray. What's wrong with us in Africa? We have a major problem to deal with. We have a major problem to deal with. This is probably the longest video I've ever done on YouTube, and it's really heavy on my heart. I have a lot to talk about as regards this subject, but then I'm going to drop this, and then I will continue my line of thoughts in subsequent videos. but Africa, we need to come back. We need to talk to ourselves. When you talk about population, we can go at loggerheads. We can go shoulder to shoulder to some continents like Asia. And guess what? When you talk about human capital, the younger generation that have the physical strength and the intellect to work, we are at advantage. Can we have a version of our own YouTube in Africa? I'm talking to you. Yes. Can we have our own version of TikTok in Africa? Do you know the TikTok videos we do in Africa, they are censored? The ones in Asia, they push them to you, but the ones in Africa you do, they hoard them. They don't allow those things go as viral as their own. Can we have our own LinkedIn in Africa? Can we have our own Facebook in Africa? I'm talking about these common ones. They may not be exactly these names I mentioned, but I'm mentioning the common names so that you can relate. We have the population, guys. What is making this? Can we have our own WhatsApp in Africa? Some guys might go after me, it's fine. Can we have our own Twitter in Africa? These guys that I just mentioned, these companies I mentioned, they are giants because of the number. It is the number. African population, from the last conversation I had, is going into its billions. We have the number, guys. We have the number. Let me stop here. Africa, we need to synergize more. We need to come together and do some things together. We're not trying to compete with any continent. No. In fact, the continents out there, the other continents, they are examples to us to follow. They are our fellow brothers and sisters. They are people who are showing us the way, how to do things. How long are we going to continue to be asking for things? When are we also going to be not compete, also give them things? When are we going to start giving them solutions? Giving them things, be a plus to them and not just only depending. When are we going to start shipping our things to them? Look at Africans in different countries of the world. They are doing exceptionally well. Go and research. Let me give an example of Nigeria. Go and research. Nigerians in different countries, they are doing very well. See, there are more Nigerians doing exceptionally well in countries outside the shores of Africa than those who are not. Let me stop here.